My name is Ethan Watson, and I'm a historian and writer. For my entire life, I've been a skeptic, dismissive of old American ghost stories, convinced they were nothing more than folklore meant to frighten children around campfires. That certainty lasted until I found myself standing in the heart of Tennessee, at the Bell homestead in Robertson County. The house loomed before me, weathered boards sagging under the weight of 2 centuries, surrounded by a mist that seemed to cling to the ground like something alive. But what drew me most was the silence, the kind of silence that feels heavy, expectant, as if something is waiting just beyond hearing. They say the witch Kate still lingers here. I arrived in late autumn, when Tennessee wore its most melancholic face. Yellow and crimson leaves crunched beneath my boots, and a cold fog drifted across the Red River, wrapping the countryside in gray. The Bell house stood some distance from neighboring farms, as if trying to forget everything that had happened within its walls. Why was I here? My goal was simple: gather material for a book, uncover the truth behind America's most famous supernatural case, the only death in US history officially attributed to paranormal forces. The moment I crossed the threshold, an inexplicable sense of dread washed over me. I told myself it was just exhaustion from the drive, but my heart pounded harder than it should. The house smelled of dust, dampness, and ancient wood. A faint draft carried the scent of rotten apples from the abandoned orchard, the same orchard where, in 1817, John Bell first encountered the creature that would change his family's fate forever. According to the historical records I'd studied, John Bell was a prosperous farmer and respected member of the Red River Baptist Church. One autumn afternoon, he spotted something impossible in his cornfield, a creature with the body of a dog and the head of a rabbit. He fired his rifle at it, but the thing vanished without a trace. That same night, the hunting began, scraping on the walls, the sound of chains dragging across floors, phantom dogs fighting in the darkness. At first, the family kept it secret, fearing ridicule in their close-knit community. But the disturbances grew too violent to ignore. I decided to spend the night in what had once been Betsy Bell's room. She was the youngest daughter, barely 12 when the hunting began, and according to all accounts, the primary victim. I unrolled my sleeping bag on the creaking floorboards, but sleep refused to come. Outside, branches scraped against the windows like skeletal fingers. The wind moaned through gaps in the walls, carrying voices that seemed almost human. Then came a sound I couldn't explain, a soft scratching near the headboard, followed by what sounded like claws dragging across wood. I froze, my breath caught in my throat. Could Betsy have felt this? I whispered into the recorder. But Betsy hadn't just heard sounds. Historical accounts describe her being slapped so hard that handprints appeared on her face, pinched until bruises bloomed on her arms, her hair pulled violently by invisible hands until she screamed. She would wake in the night, gasping for air, claiming something was choking her. While other family members experienced disturbances, Betsy bore the brunt of the entity's rage, especially after she became engaged to Joshua Gardner, a local school teacher. The entity seemed determined to prevent the marriage. Near midnight, a sharp crack echoed through the room, like a hand slamming down on wood. I jerked upright, heart hammering. Moonlight filtered weakly through the window, but a shadow on the wall moved independently of anything in the room. It twisted and stretched, taking on vaguely human form. A name whispered through my mind: Kate. By dawn, I forced myself to continue exploring. The house seemed to resist my presence, as if every room held secrets it didn't want revealed. In the parlor, I found charred fireplace tools, a bottle with no label, and on the dusty mantel, a child's shoe, small, worn, abandoned. In what remained of the library, I discovered something remarkable: fragments of a journal in Betsy's handwriting. The pages were brittle with age, the ink faded, but the words cut through time like a knife. She comes every night now. My body aches everywhere. Father weeps, mother prays, but she always returns. She says her name is Kate. She says father wronged her. She knows things no one should know. She can speak in any voice. Last night she sang hymns in mother's voice while mother stood silent beside me, weeping. I don't understand what she wants, but I'm so tired. My hands trembled as I photographed the pages. Historical records confirm that the entity eventually began to speak, at first in whispers, then in clear, distinct voices that could be heard throughout the house and even outside. It could mimic anyone perfectly: John Bell, neighbors, even preachers giving sermons. The phenomenon became so notorious that people traveled from miles around to witness it. The entity claimed multiple identities. Sometimes it said it was Kate Batts, a neighbor woman John Bell had allegedly cheated in a land deal over slave ownership. But Kate Batts herself was alive and vehemently denied any involvement. Other times, the spirit claimed to be a witch, an Indian spirit seeking revenge, or even the ghost of someone buried improperly on the property. Its story shifted like smoke, never consistent, always taunting. Outside, a dog began barking frantically, but when I looked through the window, there was nothing there. The barking faded into the morning mist, as if absorbed by the air itself. I remembered reading that phantom animal sounds were common during the original haunting: dogs fighting, rats gnawing, birds flapping against the windows. That evening, as shadows lengthened across the walls, I heard a child's voice whispering in the hallway, "She's here, she won't let go." The sounds grew louder, and the house seemed to contract around me. I forced myself forward, just a skeptic with a recorder and camera, I told myself. But then the door to Betsy's room swung open slowly, and I saw her. Or something that looked like her. A young girl stood in the doorway, barefoot, wearing a torn nightgown. Her hair hung in tangled strands, littered with dead leaves. Her face was pale, eyes hollow and dark. "Who are you?" My voice came out as barely more than a rasp. She raised her head, and when her lips moved, the sound was less like speech and more like wind through dead branches. She came for father. "Don't let her," the bottle. A cold breath touched the back of my neck. The floorboards creaked heavily behind me, as if under the weight of something massive. I couldn't move. I knew what she meant. Historical records are clear about what happened to John Bell. As the haunting intensified over 3 years, the attacks on him grew more vicious. The entity would curse him in vulgar language unheard from any proper woman of that era. It would slap him across the face hard enough to leave marks. He developed a strange facial twitch, difficulty swallowing, and progressive paralysis of his jaw and tongue. On December 19, 1820, John Bell fell into a stupor. The family couldn't wake him. On the morning of December 20th, he died. Beside his bed, they found a small vial containing a dark, smoky liquid they didn't recognize. When Dr. Hobson tested a drop on the family cat, the animal convulsed violently and died within minutes. The voice, Kate's voice, filled the house that day, cackling with malicious triumph. "I gave old Jack a good dose of that last night, and that fixed him." It was the only death in American history officially attributed to supernatural causes. I tried to run, but the house wouldn't release me. Footsteps echoed down hallways I knew were empty. Whispers crawled through the walls in languages I didn't understand. Scratching sounds clawed beneath the floorboards as if something was trying to dig its way up from below. My flashlight died. My recorder battery drained instantly. In the center of the main room, I saw it, a small glass vial, identical to the one described in every historical account I'd read. From the corner came laughter, not childish, not elderly, but multi-layered, fractured, wrong. Multiple voices speaking in unison, male and female, young and old. "I gave the old man a good dose of that last night." Then all sound stopped. Only the blue flicker of phantom firelight remained, casting grotesque shadows that stretched like grasping hands across the walls. On the plaster, I saw her, a woman's silhouette, face twisted in rage, eyes like black voids burning with 2 centuries of malice. I stumbled toward the door, but heard something behind me, slow, deliberate footsteps, the tread of someone who had all the time in the world. The door to Betsy's room slammed shut. Through the floor came the sound of prayers, whispered in voices from 200 years ago, desperate pleas for protection that had never been answered. I thought of Andrew Jackson. Even the future president, war hero and fearless warrior, had come to investigate in 1819 with a group of armed men. According to legend, his carriage became inexplicably stuck on the road to the Bell farm, unable to move despite the horses' frantic efforts and the men pushing from behind. Jackson himself reportedly said, "By the Eternal, I'd rather fight the entire British Army at New Orleans than deal with the Bell Witch." After spending one night in the house, during which his self-proclaimed witch layer was slapped, kicked, and tormented until he fled screaming. Jackson and his men left at dawn, refusing to ever speak publicly about what they'd experienced. I burst out onto the porch as dawn broke through the mist, lungs burning, heart hammering against my ribs. But the feeling of being watched never left. The Bell house stood behind me, filled with whispers, scratching, and invisible footsteps that had echoed through 2 centuries without rest. In the distance, near the gnarled apple tree where John Bell had first seen the impossible creature, I saw a figure in a white dress, watching me with empty eye sockets. She didn't move, didn't gesture, just watched, patient as stone. I drove away that morning and never returned. I wrote my book, but the shadows within its pages remained alive, refusing to be captured by mere words. Sometimes at night, I hear a voice beyond my bedroom wall, soft and patient, speaking in a dozen different tones. Come back, and learn what a real curse feels like. The Bell witch hunting ended gradually after John Bell's death on December 20, 1820, though the entity made one final appearance at his funeral, singing crude drinking songs while mourners wept. Before departing, it promised to return in 7 years. In 1828, it briefly reappeared to visit Betsy's mother, Lucy Bell, engaging in friendly conversation before promising to return again in 107 years, 1935. Some claim disturbances occurred exactly as predicted. Others say the entity never truly left. The Bell Witch Cave on the property remains a tourist attraction to this day. Visitors report strange phenomena, unexplained cold spots in summer, disembodied voices singing hymns, the sensation of invisible hands touching their faces, and an overwhelming feeling of being watched by something ancient and patient. Betsy Bell never married Joshua Gardner. The entity's torment succeeded in destroying their engagement. She eventually married another man but carried the trauma of those 3 years until her death. The cold house in Robertson County, Tennessee, stands as a silent witness to suffering, fear, and witch-haunted nights that have never truly ended. The records are real. The deaths are documented. The mystery remains unsolved. But are you brave enough to step inside and keep your sanity? Or will you become just another voice in the walls, whispering warnings that no one will believe?